Hola, it's me, Trashkin.
What's up guys, welcome back to a new video. Today we have the 2023 new Pokemon Unite controls updated guide for you guys. It's actually really exciting. They added a new really helpful setting with the last update, and this is the first changes to settings they've made in a really long time, like months. And this is really exciting, and we're going to go over the new setting, and then we also have a ton of new info on old settings, which old settings guide probably told you the wrong things to go. So I'm going to tell you the best settings as a world champion. If you don't know me, I'm /K, I was world champion last year for Pokemon Unite. I'm signed to Luminosity this year. We're actually already confirmed for worlds too, so super exciting stuff. And I'm going to show you all the settings that I go. This applies for mobile and Switch. Some of the settings will be different for Switch, so I'm going to walk you guys through that and tell you which settings are best for which devices. Without further ado, let's get into the newest setting that they added. I believe it's in battle info. So this is the new setting right here: automatically oppose surrender vote. What you want to do is you want to have it on, and you want it to have this on too right under it. So they added two new settings, and what this does is when the surrender thing pops up in the top right, it's really annoying. It covers like most of the screen, and I actually really hate it most of the time when randoms click surrender, because literally sometimes you're in the middle of like a team fight and it's like covering part of the team fight, or it's just distracting that Slayer, like it tilts you. Being able to never see this again, I love this feature as a pro player. I'm gonna have it on every game. Like, bro, the games are 10 minutes. 10 minutes. You do not need to have to surrender after 5 minutes. This is not like League of Legends where the games are like an hour long. That's where you kind of need the surrender option. But 10 minutes, I've seen arguments people made for not even having a surrender option, and I think it's genuinely a good idea because it's only 10 minutes. Like, suffer through 5 more minutes. There's still a lot of games that people surrender that are very winnable, and I think would have been won if there was no surrender option. If you're not a big fan of like always having this off, you can have it first time only each match, and that way, like, the first time it pops up that's really annoying, it'll go away, and then future times you can surrender after. That's also a really good option. Me personally, I'm gonna have it off all the time, and this is an amazing setting. But anyways, let's get into all the other system settings you should have. Graphics quality, this is actually one that's going to be different, and I believe it's only an option on mobile and not Switch. But actually, depending on how good your phone is, I recommend changing the setting. I'm playing on an iPad Pro. As you can see here, it can handle the highest graphics. However, the graphics are not going to affect your gameplay whatsoever. What will affect your gameplay is the frame rate right below this. You want to have that on the highest possible at all times, and in game it'll tell you your frame rate. You want to always have it on 60 FPS the whole time. If it's dipping below 60 FPS, you want to change the graphics quality to lower and see the highest graphics quality. Obviously you want the game to look nice, so choose the highest graphics quality that you can still consistently have 60 FPS on, and that's what I would recommend for that option. Next, these options are, you can choose, it doesn't really matter which one you choose. Use simple Pokemon selection screen. I'm also going to explain what all these settings do if you don't know what they do, because some people are confused on what they do, and I know what every setting does. View fashion items with trainer motions. That's just going to let you see the trainers move or not. I have it on because it's nice to see like the little gimmicks. Use simple Pokemon selection screen. What this does is it makes like the tray of Pokemon. I'll show you guys later and I'll tell you that that's what this was, but it basically pops up a tray of Pokemon and makes it kind of a little easier to select. However, I don't really like it. It looks kind of ugly, so that's why I have it off, but that one's up to personal preference. I think it's a lot better for Switch actually, so if you're a Switch player you can have that. Vibrate function I recommend on, and that just, it vibrates when you like score a goal and other stuff, and it's just really handy to let you know what's going on across the map. Display text chat, I think it's nice to see what people are saying in your lobby, especially if you want to get better at this game. Being able to like meet up with people in the lobby, they text you like, hey, what's your Discord or other socials, you can actually start to get into the community if you're kind of like a solo queue player, so I think that's important. Voice chat settings, this is just to turn them off or on in game. That's personal preference. Network latency info, this is important. Definitely have it on so you can see whether you're on green pane or orange pane. It's actually very handy because this is actually very important in practice. Being able to see when you're on green or orange Wi-Fi bars, it'll show in the top right. Extremely important the better you get. What most people don't realize is literally the way these games are programmed. When you are on delay is what we call it, but that's just when you see the orange Wi-Fi bar. When you're on green, it's usually around 40 pane to like 80 pain. That's what green would represent. Orange is like 90 to like 140, 150. And then red Wi-Fi bars in the top right, that'll be above that. And what most people don't realize is that the game is completely different based on what pain you're on. On green pain, stuns will literally last the amount of time they're supposed to last. But on orange pain, they will last way longer, like almost double the time. Not double, but way longer than they should. That's because the way it's programmed, when you have pain, the input lag is making the stun last way longer. You can test this yourself. It's something people don't realize that's so broken about pain. Team YouTube in May finals, the reason, obviously they're a good team and they made it really far, but the reason they were able to beat so many top teams and why so many top teams drop games to them is because they're on some of the worst servers, NA servers for the other teams. And they know this. They're playing like Pikachu Machamp. And literally, I remember there was a tournament game we lost to them, which I cover in my video on them, Team YouTube versus Luminosity in May finals, when we won May finals this year. And they were the only team we lost a game to because they Machamp united me when I was Snorlax. And normally when I'm on green Wi-Fi bars, when I'm on green pain, you can usually use a move through Machamp Unite. You might notice this if you're playing on good Wi-Fi. You can use moves when you're in Machamp Unite getting stunned by it. I would have been able to Snorlax Unite if I was on green Wi-Fi bars, and we probably would have won the game. However, because I was on orange Wi-Fi bars, I wasn't streaming it so you can't see it, but there's other games versus them where I can stream me having orange Wi-Fi bars. I think I haven't covered those games yet, but I literally could not Snorlax Unite through the Machamp Unite. It was impossible. I was spamming my button, and just when you're on orange bars, it's impossible to do that, versus on green pain you can. For like Dodrio Zoroark, that's very important. Knowing your network latency is extremely important, something you should keep track of, because for example, if you just live in a shit region, you're on orange Wi-Fi bars, I would not recommend playing Pokemon that require being on lower pain, like Zoroark, Lucario, Dodrio. These types of Pokemon, just stay away from them. Instead, you should main like more spellcasters like Delphox, Pikachu, Cramorant, these type of mages like Mew that don't require having that low latency. Keeping track of that, very important. Definitely have that setting on. Colorblind, that's just if you're colorblind. Let's move on to controls. I believe in Chris Hero's guide on Pokemon Unite controls, he said you should have the lowest remaining HP on percent. And he brought up this specific use case scenario where when you're killing the bees, the big bee will spawn first and the small bees will spawn after. So if you hit the big bee first, you can continue to hit it before you hit the small bees. And that's the argument he made for lowest remaining HP percent being better. However, the problem is if you have this on lowest remaining HP percent, and we'll get into later targeting, a lot of the targeting, especially for like newer players, is gonna be on the tanks in team fights. So if you have a 5v5 team fight, you actually want to focus down their high damage dealers first. So like if they have a Cinderace, you want to kill that first. You don't care about killing their Slowbro tank. It doesn't do much damage. You have to kill a Cinderace first. If you have it on lowest remaining HP percent, what's going to happen is the Slowbro will probably already be low HP when the fight starts. So you're only going to be hitting the Slowbro instead of the Cinderace unless you target otherwise. But targeting well in team fights really fast is really hard for new players. I think that's a really bad setting to recommend. I wouldn't even recommend playing this setting on Switch, even if you're a really experienced player, because wheel is really bad on Switch, which we'll get into later. But that's why lowest remaining HP value is way better, especially for new players. I play on this on mobile, and I'd say the only use case scenario where you use lowest remaining HP percent is if you're on mobile and you use lock-on icons, which I'll cover later again. Even I think just using lowest remaining HP value is easier because I've played with this my whole life playing this game, so lowest remaining HP percent I'd have to get used to, and I'd just rather do value. Literally, it just gives you better options in a lot of scenarios unless you want to specifically target, but it just makes your life way easier to have the lowest remaining HP value. It will not matter that much, trust me. Obviously, you want to have advanced controls here, and what this button does is it allows you to attack Wild Farm. If you click on the small button right here, you can see I'm pinning it on my screen, which doesn't exist if you have default controls. So this is probably the most important setting. Please have this setting on. Securing farm and objectives is so important in Pokemon Unite, and you simply are not able to attack them with your auto attacks unless you have this setting. A lot of the times when I go on like my Smurf accounts that I have because I get too high on my main account, sometimes I don't have this setting applied and it's a nightmare. It's literally so hard to play the game without it at a high level. Automatic basic attacks. What this does is basically when you're attacking in game, it'll keep attacking even when you stop pressing the button. It's really bad because sometimes you don't want to keep attacking. There's a lot of Pokemon with certain abilities like Garchomp, Rough Skin, Aegislash, Iron Defense, I believe it's called, 1 through 4. Pokemon with abilities like that where sometimes you actually don't want to attack them. And not only this, when you're attacking them constantly, it makes you stand still, so it could kill you sometimes too, which is why the setting is really bad. Do not go it. In motion pursuit distance, you want to have this off and just have it on melee to be safe because that's a shorter range, but you just want to have it off. What this does is it'll make you follow them. It'll make you chase them when they're a little out of range, and that's really bad because sometimes you don't want to chase them, but you still want to keep auto attacking someone else. So for example, say in a team fight, right? Again, we'll use the same thing. There's a full health Cinderace and there's a low health Slowbro. Even if you're on lowest remaining HP value, you might sometimes target the Slowbro because its lowest remaining HP value is so low, it ends up being lower than the Cinderace. In that case, it's fine. You probably just want to kill the Slowbro if it has less health than the Cinderace. But what's going to happen is obviously you do want to still target the Cinderace. So say the Slowbro runs out and the Cinderace is still auto attacking you, you're going to die unless you target the Cinderace, and the Slowbro runs out of your range. Instead of hitting the Cinderace, now you're gonna chase the Slowbro because that's what you're targeting to set on, and because you have this option on it'll chase and then you'll die to the Cinderace. So there's just a lot of small scenarios like that where it's really bad. You just do not want to have this on. It'll kill you. Settings like this are actually extremely important, and it makes the game extremely hard to play if you don't have the right setting, which is why, like, share this with your friends, subscribe, share the video if you haven't, leave a like, comment if you like this type of stuff. I make a lot of educational content. I like giving back to the community. So this is really important to know, and it'll make you such a better player just having the correct settings on. Scoring controls. This is press button guarantee. Trust me, hold button down might seem easier, but it's really not. Press button guarantee. The reason press button is so good is when you're scoring and you get interrupted, you can actually spam the button and you'll keep scoring. The problem with hold button down is if you get interrupted while scoring, you have to go and press the button again. You have to take your finger off and you have to press down again to start scoring again. Whereas press button, if you're spamming the button, even if you get interrupted, you will immediately start scoring again right after. And that's why it's so useful. I recommend this on Switch and on mobile. Another reason is because when you just press the button to score and you see someone walking up, especially on Switch, but even on mobile too, you can actually move your hands to the other buttons that say you need to aim like a Decidueye arrow at them, something like that. You need to move away to kite back. You can do that immediately while still scoring so that you can stop scoring last second if you think there's still a chance to score. Whereas hold button down, one of your fingers is going to be locked in on that the whole time and you won't be able to react as fast, which is why that option's better. Move canceling controls. I highly recommend having this on slide to icon. There's not much of a difference here, except for lock on icons, it'll destroy the ability to do this. I'm not sure what the settings look like on Switch actually, but just make sure you have the setting where you have the wheel available. You just want to have the wheel available to use, even if you're not going to use it. Even though wheel targeting is really bad, I'll get into that. Certain Pokemon might still want to use it, like Slowbro. For Slowbro Unites, wheel is going to be really handy. Actually, having this option still is going to be really nice. The way you play these two different options is going to be slightly different. So just having it on this, which it isn't a big deal, it's not worse than this one, is just going to be optimal. So if you ever do have to switch to wheel, you don't have this like move canceling that is going to be really hard for you. And what move canceling is just say you're aiming a Decidueye arrow and you want to cancel it, you drag it to the X and you won't use it because sometimes you might want to save your charges. There's a lot of moves like that where maybe you want to cancel it after you had it dragged out. This one is just once you slide it to a certain distance away, then it'll cancel. Again, there's not much difference except for the walk on icon, so that's why I recommend having it on the slide to icon. Now lock on icon. So if you're going to use this, I recommend having it on icon, not movement, and we'll get into the difference there. Also, for Switch players, you're going to have the option for wheel here. What wheel does is it's really like funky, like it doesn't do the targeting. It's hard to target in the first place, and it's only if they're in range. Wheel actually on Switch, I do not recommend using. I would turn wheel off because it actually makes sure hit moves like say Electro Ball from Mew or Pikachu. It makes those harder to hit. Sometimes you'll directly aim it at someone and it'll go to someone else. If you notice that happens on wheel way more often than if you just have it turned off. It makes the targeting really weird. The targeting is really janky janky with that. There's a bunch of Blissey glitches with it too. So for example, like Blissey Knight, Blissey Safeguard, Blissey Soft Boiled. If you have this lock-on icon off and wheel off, your Blissey moves will most likely go to the right person that you aim it at. Whereas if you have it on, sometimes you aim it directly at a person and it'll go the complete opposite way. I actually didn't know this at Worlds when we won last year, which is why if you watch gameplay, some of my Blissey Knights, like I think like 30% of them at Worlds, which it wasn't as bad for me because I tried to be very careful with it because I knew this glitch would happen. I just didn't know why at the time. If you watch Asian Blisseys and like some of the Blisseys from other teams, they miss like every single Blissey Knight. And it's because no one knew about this at the time. If you're playing Pokemon with sure hits like that, make sure to turn this off because it'll make the targeting really bad and you have to be really, really careful with the moves to avoid all the glitches with them. In reality, most Pokemon, you just want to have this off. I tend to have to play Slowbro a lot, and this ability with Slowbro is extremely broken because you can slide your Slowbro Unite and you can directly slide it to the lock-on icon that will appear. They appear on the side, and even if you're out of range, you'll walk up to the person and you'll Slowbro Unite them. That's extremely broken because sometimes even if you try to aim it, you won't be able to get the direct person you're on. Someone could body block it. You can do this with Wheel too, I think, on Switch, which is why if you play Slowbro, I recommend having this on. There's a couple other Pokemon it works well with, but besides those Pokemon, I do not recommend having this lock-on icon on. Luckily, you can actually change the setting in game. So I do that sometimes based on the Pokemon I'm playing. If it's a really important Blissey game in a tournament, I'll make sure to turn this off when I like die before I have to Blissey Unite, because you get it at level 8, you have time during the game to change it. Otherwise, have it off. It'll probably be easier. Lots of times the wheel targeting only makes a difference in like a 1 out of every 100 games. And sure that in that one game out of 100, you'll be like, fuck, why didn't I have wheel? Like if I had wheel, I could have stopped that score. There's 3 people trying to score on pad and you can change your auto attacks every single one if you're really good at the game. In reality, that doesn't happen that often, especially in solo queue. So it would just make your life easier to have it off as a casual player. However, if you're looking to improve as a pro player, I would recommend having it on, because if you want to become pro in this game, if you want to become really good, then practicing that mechanic, getting good at it, that's going to be actually really good and really helpful for when you get on pro teams, because you're going to have to learn that sooner or later if you want to be the best, and just learning it sooner is going to be way better. All the move panel sensitivities, I don't care what anyone else has told you, I recommend having them on the highest as possible. So what this one does, when you drag a move around, it'll make it way faster. I actually highly recommend that. Highly recommend that, because if you don't have it on highest as possible, especially on mobile, Switch, you can maybe have it at like 80%, but still really high. You're still going to be really accurate. It's hard to not be accurate. It's just you're going to be way faster if you have it on high, which is what I recommend. It's still really easy to be accurate, so that's why it should still be really high. It'll make you way faster at it. Camera follows moves, I recommend to have this on. If you're a Switch player, you can have this off, but for mobile, 100% have it on. On Switch, you can learn a mechanic where you can still drag the camera without having to have this on, and it's a bit janky on Switch. That's why I would recommend actually to have it off on Switch, but on mobile, definitely have it on. It helps so much when you're playing Pokemon like Gardevoir, Venusaur. When you use a move like a Solar Beam or like some long range move, it'll drag with your camera when you're using it, and that's actually really helpful so you can see where the enemies are to hit them. Because on mobile, unless you play Claw, which no one does, trust me, no one plays Claw on Unite, and what Claw is you use multiple fingers on your screen, and it's really bad for your hands, so I'd recommend avoiding using it if you can. Just having that on is a must for mobile. Move aim follows movement direction. You want to have this off. The reason you want to have this off is because when you dash on dash Pokemon like Lucario, most of the time you're dashing into an enemy to try to kill it. I saw like Chris in his guide video try to say that, oh, you might want to dash away and having it tied to your movement is really helpful. No, hell no. If you really want to dash away, you can flick it to dash away really fast. You do not need the movement. This is not going to screw you up whatsoever if you don't have it on. You're not going to get to the highest level. Like Overlord, I'm teammates with Overlord, does not use this. None of the best players in the world that use dash Pokemon use this. It's a really bad idea. Do not recommend whatsoever. Move aim snaps to nearby target. Actually, there's already aim assist in Unite, and even if you have this off, your move aim will still snap to targets. You might notice this. What this does is just when they're in the radius, if you just hold the button down, it'll actually follow while they're in the radius, and it's really janky. I don't recommend it. Most of the time you're gonna flick to hit them anyways, or you're gonna be aiming it already, so you don't need this trigger. This is just if you're like trying to auto aim the ability, if you just click it and you're holding it down for some reason, which I don't know why people do that. I don't even know why this is a setting. This is honestly a really weird setting, but yeah, that's what that does. Camera movement. So this is going to be different for Switch. I actually think Switch has 2 panels here, and you both want to turn them up to high. And I believe on Switch, what it does is it lets you scroll on the mini map way faster, which you can do it on mobile, but no one really does it. What you want to do on mobile is there's a panel right here in game, and you can slide it, and this just makes it way faster. You want to have it on slide. If you have it on movement panel, it's gonna be like a joystick, and I hate it. It's also really slow. You want to have it on slide, and camera panning is actually a really useful ability. I use it a lot. Using that is really important. Battle info, we already kind of covered the new option, which is really nice. This one is personal preference, the one at the top. Show trainer name above HP gauge, also personal preference, doesn't really do much. This just hides names, and this hides names too in game as well. Boosted attack gauge, you want to have this on because it shows you like how much you're building up to your boosted attack, especially Pokemon like Archomp and Decidueye that have like ore buildups. It's really useful to know when you have your stacks or not. This is extremely important, a must. I highly recommend it. You do not want to be counting your boosted attacks. I'm good. Show decimal cooldown values. This is really nice to see exactly when your move's gonna come up. Highly recommend it. Highlight outlines. This helps you see them better. It'll help Pokemon like stand out on your screen, which I think is really nice, so I recommend it. I also just think without the highlights, the enemy Pokemon look really weird, so that's why I would recommend that. Display message when Pokemon level up. This is nice to know when a Pokemon's getting a new ability. It's just a nice reminder. It doesn't really get in the way at all, so I'd recommend having those all on. Quick chat settings. What I recommend for quick chat, please remove thanks. Nobody likes thanks players. Please remove it. It's just tilting your whole lobby. It's tilting yourself. Honestly, you'll be better off without thanks, without I need help. Like, just stop. Just stop. The panes in game actually already have 3 separate panes. You have gather here. That's already letting people know that you want to fight there, so you don't need a quick chat that says fight. You have keep the pressure on, which lets people know you want to play aggro, so you don't need any quick chat messages like that. You already have these auto built in on the side. You have retreat also auto built in. So what you should use your quick chat settings for is actually to communicate with your randoms easily. So headed to the top path. What I do with this, with combined with defend or goal zone, because mobile you can't drag it. On Switch it's a bit different. You can drag the paints like a goal zone and it'll auto paint it. You can't do that on mobile, so you have to improvise. What I do is headed to the top path, you paint that, and then you put defend or goal zone, and you could do it either way. With these 2 messages, now you can tell your randoms to defend the top goal zone, defend bottom goal zone. Of course sometimes they won't listen, but any communication is nice. If you're heading to the top path or bottom path, you can also pin that. So there's a 2 use case scenario, very useful. Now's our chance to score. Randoms a lot of times don't know when they can actually score or not. Having this to pin so that your randoms will come score with you, because more people standing on pad will make you score faster. Very, very useful. Audio. The only one I recommend having on is sound effects. You can turn the other ones off. I actually don't play with sound effects that much. Sometimes I forget to turn it on, but it's actually really useful. For example, some moves you can actually hear when they hit an enemy. It's like Hoopa Shadow Ball. You can go that and you can Shadow Ball a bush. This is what Elo did at Worlds, by the way, with Hoopa. And if it hits them, you can actually tell if it hit them or not by the sound. So you can actually check bushes, because it's not going to reveal them if you hit them with Shadow Ball, but it makes a sound. So now you know they're in that bush. So very useful for checking bushes at a top level. Really important. So I recommend playing with it. Privacy settings. This is all up to you. Really doesn't matter what you do here, and that's it. There are settings in game for the joystick where it's set for mobile, and I'm just going to show you guys like my settings for that, but in reality it does not matter that much. That's personal preference too, where you want to put it. I really hope they make it a setting so you can get a smaller joystick on mobile, because that will really help with movement. So one last setting I forgot to talk about is brightness. So I recommend having the brightness on the darkest possible setting. Not only is it going to save your battery, it also just helps like things that are not dark stand out more. So if the map is darker, enemy Pokemon are going to stand out more, and it just looks better too. That's what I go, that's what I recommend. But that's all the settings, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. It took a lot of editing and effort for this, a lot more editing than I usually do. So please, if you enjoyed, do everything you can to support the video, blow this up. I've been making content consistently. I made tier lists if you want to see that. I've been getting a lot of views on the past couple days. I am doing a series on all our competitive games this year. If you want to follow the previous world champions, Luminosity, and see the highest level gameplay and my analysis of it. And I'm also planning to start doing a lot of series. I'm planning to start uploading montages of like cool plays, stuff like that. But yeah, if you're just interested in any of that kind of content, subscribe. I have a lot of stuff in the works. I'm really active. Like I like reading comments, seeing what people would enjoy, and thinking about making content on that. This video actually someone recommended in my comments. They were like, please make a updated Pokemon Unite guide. I was like, that's a really good idea, because I actually made my own guide before. They're really out of date actually, because we've learned a lot more recently. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.